Hey, thanks for checking out The Solid Verbal. Now would be a great time to subscribe to the channel for college football content all off season long.
Welcome back to The Solid Verbal, boys and girls. My name is Ty Hildenbrandt, that fine gentleman. As always, you know him well. We're in a dad hat. Happy Father's Day, a day late.
Thank you.
To you, Mr. Rubenstein, as we record this on Monday the 19th. Sir, how you doing?
I'm good. You know what happens when I meet new people, Ty, and I'm sure this happens to you as well, and they say, what do you do for a living? I'm like, oh, I do podcast stuff. And they're like, oh, what kind of podcast stuff? Do you host? Are you a producer? Or you sell ads? I'm like, no, I don't sell ads or anything like that. It's on the like microphone side of things. And we have a couple, and they say, oh, cool, what's it about? And I say, oh, college football. And they're like, oh, I love college football. I went to Notre Dame. I went to Wisconsin. I went to blah, blah, blah. And I say, oh, cool, yeah, it's a fun show. We love the sport. And they're like, what do you do the rest of the year? And I say, no, that's the whole thing. And they're like, what are you talking? You like do like NCAA tournament and like the draft? I'm like, no, just college football. And they're like, so what do you? I'm like, well, there's recruiting and schedules for 2024. And so this is one of those episodes where if you're wondering what we talk about the rest of the year, welcome to that. And I'm excited as always, Ty. But yeah, that is the question almost without fail that I'm sure you also get. Like, so like May, what do you like Kentucky Derby or what? Like, nope. So here we are.
I got the question yesterday. I was out on the golf course with some folks I didn't know all that well. They said, what do you do? I said, I run a podcast. And of course, you get the same response. Yeah. Really? Oh, okay. Tell me more. What do you talk about in June? Well, as Dan alluded, welcome to The Solid Verbal. Today, we're going to go into all of the news that we have, been letting kind of back up a little bit. There's not a lot of news, but there's enough that I think we need to go back through and make sure that we're up to speed. Mm-hmm. As we said, we're recording this on June the 19th, also known as Juneteenth. Yep. Happy Juneteenth to everybody out there who is listening, perhaps on Tuesday or on the 19th proper, if you are a member of our Patreon community at verballers.com, verballers.com. Our Patreon benefit tiers, are all out there. Go and check them out. Make sure you follow along on social media. Make sure you subscribe to our weekly newsletter at quickslants.solidverbal.com. And most importantly, last but certainly not least, make sure you subscribe or follow the podcast wherever it is that you like to listen to your podcast. Dan, let's get into news. We're just doing this quick, baby. Right to the point today. Right to the point. Ty? Jumping right into 2024.
I think that's what we're doing. Yeah.
2023 is not even here yet. And don't think for a moment that the thought is lost on me, yours truly, Ty Hildenbrandt, that whenever we start looking ahead, whenever we start getting a little bit too far out over our skis, that's when stuff goes crazy.
Yes.
That's when stuff really happens. And so not just for this reason. I realize people are looking ahead to 2024 for a whole multitude of reasons. Not just for that reason, but for many others that we sort of alluded to when we did our schedule previews for 23. We're obviously going to get into team previews here a little bit closer to the season. But when you start looking too far ahead, that's when things go really haywire in presumably 2023. So I'm excited. I don't want to get too far out, but this is the news, as it were, in mid-June. We have seen both the Big Ten and SEC fully steer into their alternate reality that starts in 2024 and beyond.
Well,
for the Big Ten, For the Big Ten, of course, it is UCLA and USC joining the conference going divisionless. Mm-hmm. Same deal on the SEC side with both Texas and Oklahoma joining and them releasing their divisionless model as well. You were going to say something. I'm sorry I cut you off.
Well, it's one of those things that, people that are not wild about where this is all heading, they're like, college football just wants to be the NFL, right? That, that we want network television and we want, this big show of the sport and we want to bring together the best of the best and USC and UCLA. And we want it to be like the NFL. And this sort of has that feel, right? The NFL tries to make an event out of everything, right? And good for them. It works. It's successful. People buy in and love it. But this has that feel of like, all right, we're doing a big schedule release for 2024, and this is how it's going to work out. And no, we're not going to play 9 conference games, but not yet. But here is how we are going to have, Texas, Oklahoma, USC, and UCLA incorporated into everything a year and a half out or whatever. And so it does have that feel. So what were your takeaways, Ty?
Well, so here is the sequence of events, right? Just to fully bring everybody up to speed on the chronology of such. Mm-hmm. The Big Ten launched first. They hit go first, and they released their new scheduling model called the Flex Protect Plus, which I joked in the newsletter sounds like something you apply to your upholstery. Not crazy about the name, but what it means basically is...
Those sound like AI condoms.
AI condoms. I mean, there's a whole bunch of directions that you could take this, but basically what it means is that at least for the next 2 years, each school has what they're calling quote unquote 2-play opponents, which is buzzword bingo for a home and home series.
Right.
2-play opponents that are your home and homes for 2025 and 2024.
Yeah.
As well as what they're calling protected opponents, which are opponents that they have deemed as annual rivals.
Right.
It is not symmetrical. So not everybody has 2-play opponents and 1 protected matchup.
This is all sounding like John Boyce's, now we're introducing Twitter's main lists and Twitter's home lists, not to be confused with Twitter's lists. Yeah. Continue.
I thought the same thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Iowa has 3 protected opponents: Minnesota, Nebraska, and Wisconsin. Penn State is none. They have none. Penn State does not have an annual rival per this new Flex Protect Plus upholstery protection AI condom model that the Big Ten is unveiling. We can post as a link as part of our episode notes here to the graphic if you want to go out and see who has been given whom. Interestingly enough, on the USC and UCLA side, which I think is obviously driving a lot of this discussion, USC has Penn State and Wisconsin as their 2-play teams, and then UCLA obviously is their protected rival.
But this changes every 2 years?
It changes every 2 years.
Okay.
Every 2 years. And then UCLA gets Nebraska and Rutgers, which is awesome for them. Maybe not for the airline miles. They've got something like 26,000 round trip air miles in their 2024 schedule. We could talk about that at a later date. And then they've also got USC as their protected rival. So, we don't need to talk through the entirety of the 2024 Big Ten schedule.
Okay.
We can do that in 2024.
Sure.
Presumably in May, when we need more content to discuss.
Who's coming here? Who's coming to the Chicagoland area? Who's coming to Northwestern? I think UCLA is.
Well, looking at Northwestern's got UCLA coming to town.
Okay. That's what I wanted to
know. No, excuse me. Next season.
2024.
Next 2024, they've got USC coming to town. They will go to UCLA.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I just, when you start talking like that, and obviously people just want to know who's playing that week, and they're just going to look at the schedule. People are not all that concerned with scheduling terminology and architecture. But as you were saying that, I was just picturing, 7 Wisconsin fans over the age of 60 sitting around a tailgate saying, no. Actually, Indiana's our flex 2 spot protected plus this coming season. So I love all of this stuff. People just want to drive easy understanding fully away from this sport.
There is a little bit of a legends and leaders feel to the Flex Protect Plus, is there not?
Yeah, obviously. So why can't Penn State? A little bit overbranded. Why can't Penn State play Michigan State in the all hallowed land grant trophy? That's a rivalry that's existed for 8.5 years. Why that's just not happening anymore, or it's not protected? It can happen.
It's not protected. It will happen in 2025, but it's not protected. This has been a thing with Penn State.
Yeah,
and people who follow the program well, who are from here, certainly those of us who went there. Mm-hmm. This is something that I think has all been implicitly understood about Penn State and the Big Ten. And I've joked for years about the Michigan State quote unquote rivalry.
Right.
The Michigan State rivalry when I was a student was more a rivalry from the standpoint of the blood drive than the football game.
Yeah.
There's a blood drive.
Admirable. Yeah.
It's great, right? For charity, it helps. But in terms of a football thing, the land grant trophy played last game every year. Never really felt like a rivalry. Pitt felt like more of a rivalry. Notre Dame, when they played Notre Dame, that felt like more of a rivalry.
I agree, and we don't get
frankly,
it. Yeah.
Frankly, Ohio State, which is not a protected opponent, feels like much more of a rivalry than Michigan State.
Well, this probably has, as much to do with Penn State being an independent for so long that you don't develop that bad blood in that year in, year out rivalry. Yeah, than anything else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so that made some waves, I think, of the Penn State community in that people look forward to playing Ohio State. It doesn't mean they can't play. It doesn't mean they won't play. They do play Ohio State in 2024. But it just means that it's not a protected game.
Right.
And I saw all sorts of commentary out there from folks that I read in the Penn State world, ranging from, this is a bummer, we look forward to this game every year,
right, to,
wait, we don't have to play them, cool, that helps,
right,
moving forward. This is all probably moot because next year we move to the 12-game or 12-team playoff anyway.
Yeah.
And you can make a pretty good case that the years in which Penn State lost to Ohio State, they still probably would have gotten into that. But that aside, it is a thing that people look forward to, especially if you're like a season ticket holder and you want to see the best games at home. So not a protected game. Penn State does get Ohio State at home in 2024, in addition to USC, in addition to Michigan State. But just something to keep in the back of your mind if you want to maybe bone up on the Flex Protect Plus model.
And you alluded to this, but I guess in odd years, there's the reverse pivot option that can be exercised by a number of these teams, right?
The reverse pivot, explain.
No, I just made all of those words up.
The reverse pivot's a soccer maneuver.
The reverse pivot option can be exercised in odd years only if those bowl teams have also exercised APR scores that are acceptably over the average APR scores of 2/3 of the conference.
Great.
Yeah.
Terrific.
Okay, so what USC is playing who? UCLA they're playing who? That's all that actually matters from this, I think, story in the short term, that like USC fans and UCLA fans are like, okay, here's where we're traveling. Here's who's coming to LA.
Here's what this means. It means that starting next season, Illinois, Iowa, Michigan, and Wisconsin fans have a trip to Southern California that they can play.
Who gets to go out in November?
We haven't seen that yet.
Oh, they just announced. Yeah, you're right.
They just announced.
Right.
But
okay.
One of those teams, maybe two of those teams, perhaps three, depending on how they work this thing out, will have an opportunity to go to Southern California. USC, for their part, will have to travel to Maryland, to Penn State, 2 long trips, as well as Northwestern, Purdue, and their now protected rival UCLA.
I don't know how concerned I am about all of these players traveling on chartered flights across the country. Like at a certain point, LA to Seattle and then LA to the DC area. Yeah, it's a couple more hours on a plane, but it's the old, once you're on a plane, you're on a plane. You're not flying to Tokyo. So I'm not that concerned about all of the travel unless it means they're just going to have less time to prepare because they need to. Are we going to get those stories about Mel Tucker's sleep bank? Is that going to be a thing moving forward? I hope so. I hope that's a thing. But
I'm here for that.
Otherwise, it's more just, I guess it's inconvenient for parents and family members who want to travel, and these are more difficult places to get to directly from the West Coast in a lot of instances. I mean, you can fly to Newark for Rutgers. It's 45 minutes away. State College is difficult to get to directly, as we've mentioned. And it's going to be a different experience.
They can fly into University Park. It's harder for you to get there.
No, I said
direct.
This
is what this comes down to whenever we have this discussion.
You think USC...
It's harder for you to get there, but not for them. They can fly right in.
No. I'm saying parents. If you're living in Southern California to get to State College, you're not making a direct flight to University Park Airport.
Okay.
As far as I know.
All right.
Okay.
All right. I'll lower the guns. I apologize.
Okay. It's okay.
Let's go to the SEC. Then, not to be outdone, the SEC decided that they needed to make a big to-do out of their schedule release, their 8-game conference schedule release. Notably, as you said at the top, everyone's trying to make a thing out of everything. They are trying to NFL-tize this a little bit. It's not fully the NFL like Nick Saban would warn.
Right.
But they're trying to make it a thing. The SEC Network got all hopped up for this. They initially released a graphic showing that Oklahoma plays South Carolina twice.
Mm-hmm.
I believe they got their Columbias mixed up and meant Mizzou to be one of them.
Okay.
But alas, we've got conference opponents now out for the 2024 SEC schedule. Mississippi State made an AI-themed video to announce its schedule, which I'm sure you were crazy about. I don't know if you saw that yet.
I saw it. Yeah.
Technophobe Dan Rubenstein. Yeah. So some interesting tidbits here. The Texas A&M rivalry is back on.
Well, see, that's the interesting thing about this announcement. And even though I think it's, much ado about something way down the line, it's the connective tissue that we have already between Mizzou and Texas and Oklahoma and Texas A&M, and even going back to Arkansas, going back to the Southwest Conference. Like, there's actual connective tissue that exists, whereas the Big Ten feels a little bit more corporate for corporate's sake in adding USC and UCLA. There is something about, oh, cool, yeah, we get Texas and Arkansas more often, because we've seen Texas and Arkansas. I think that was the matchup that cost Hudson Card his job, I want to say, a couple of years ago. Right. But, yeah, having Mizzou back in the fold, you think about all those, early to late 2000s matchups, and Texas A&M is, like, there's something interesting about, and vintage, I would say, about getting some of those matchups back on paper, back on our screens to see, oh, cool, yeah, that is happening next year. That's fun.
Yeah, and I think what I liked about what they tried to do anyway is they tried to preserve the rivalries as best they could.
Yeah.
In kind of this age of college football now where everything is going big money, everything is being driven by networks, you do risk those rivalries kind of falling by the wayside. And it seemed as if the SEC tried to pay special attention to that. So it wasn't just the Texas A&M thing, but obviously Alabama, Auburn, Florida, Georgia, the Egg Bowl, Red River Shootout, Alabama, Texas. All of these things were preserved, as was Alabama, LSU, Arkansas, Texas, Florida, Tennessee, Florida, LSU, Georgia, Tennessee. Like, I'm reading off a list here. You don't need to hear me do that, but the fact remains that I think they were pretty responsible from that standpoint.
It seems fine. By the way, just real quick, offhand, I just noticed this because I'm not a soccer person in the way that you are. Qatar is in CONCACAF? It just gave me a lot of like UCLA to the Big Ten vibes that an emirate or whatever Qatar is in the middle of the Persian Gulf is now a rival with like Jamaica?
They were allowed to play in some CONCACAF.
Well, they're playing in the Gold Cup coming up, right?
Right. They've been allowed to play in some events.
And then I saw something where it's like, oh, and also like Qatar Airlines is a major sponsor of the Gold Cup now. Like, oh, right. I see how this is. I think they're playing here, right? Jamaica.
There's a little UCLA and USC to the Big Ten vibes there.
Yeah,
with that.
I had never known. Sorry, I learned that last night. As I also learned that I think the U.S. team is playing Jamaica right here in Chicago in a few days.
You should go.
I saw that some of the headliners aren't going to be there for the U.S., so I don't know.
None of the headliners will be there, but you can still go.
Yeah, I know.
Cheap tickets still available.
Yeah. All right. Anything else with scheduling? Anything else that stood out to you within the SEC announcement?
I thought that the other thing that I would call out is that we get Alabama, Georgia.
I saw that for only like the 5th time in the regular season or something like that.
Yep. Alabama's schedule, their road schedule in particular next year is just brutal. They have to play at LSU, at Oklahoma, at Tennessee. Mm-hmm. They also have to go to Wisconsin the second week of the season. Mm-hmm. They get Georgia at home, but that's still Georgia. And Georgia, for their part, also has a pretty tough draw in that they've got their game against Florida.
Yeah.
In Jacksonville. They've got Auburn. They've got Tennessee. They've got to go to Alabama. They got to go to Texas, to Ole Miss, and to Kentucky. So we can talk about this in 2024. I don't want to get too far down this rabbit hole, but it does not seem as if the two assumed top dogs in the SEC are getting any picnic here with the way that this thing is drawn up, which is better for the fans. Like, the ultimate winner here, I think, is probably the fans because you get more good games.
Yeah.
And the SEC as a whole is probably less fearful about loading these teams up, knowing that there will be, I think, more of a runway, right, for them to get into the postseason. But we could talk about that in due time.
And somehow,
go too far down the rabbit hole.
Somehow 9 of these teams are playing Western Carolina next year. By the way, that's a good strategy for somebody like Western Carolina to just like nobody's paying attention, and they just become an independent Washington Generals for the SEC and make $93 million a year. They make 3 times more than Washington State.
How does Western Carolina have a 100,000 seat stadium? Interesting.
I love this idea that they're just cashing checks and losing 55-3. Western Carolina, secretly independent, taking abuse, making $93 million a season. Yeah.
Dan, let me move on and talk about San Diego State, because if you want to joke about the John Boyce Twitter
it's the
thing,
best.
There's a similar vibe to that with San Diego State.
All right.
So in case you're not paying attention to what's going on, San Diego State notified the Mountain West that it, quote, intends to resign from the conference, and it asks for a 1-month extension, quote, given unforeseen delays involving other collegiate athletic conferences beyond our control.
Yeah, of course.
But San Diego State also subsequently notified the league that the letter was, quote, not an official notice of resignation, according to sources.
Right.
They are exploring all the options and asking the questions.
Mm-hmm.
The intention of the June 13th letter that says it's intending to resign was not that San Diego State is exiting the conference.
Sure.
This is very weird.
Yeah.
Here is what this means. What this means is it has long been rumored that San Diego State could join the Pac-12. Now, per reports, that official invitation has yet to come.
Mm-hmm.
But the deadline to actually notify the Mountain West without paying $34 million is June 30th.
Mm-hmm.
They have to let them know by June 30th if they want to leave for next year.
Mm-hmm.
If they do so by June 30th, the exit fee is $16.5 million. If they do so on July 1st, it's $34 million. Wow. So San Diego State went to him and said, hey, guys, just like per chance, we should want to leave, presumably by some point like later this summer. Could we get that 1-month extension?
Sure.
From everything I've read, the Mountain West basically told them to go pound sand.
Of course.
Like, why would we do that? Why would we let you off the hook like that?
Mm-hmm.
This is much ado about nothing. I think San Diego State could end up in the Pac-12. I don't know what the Pac-12 media deal is going to look like. There are rumors out there at time of recording that it might look like $22.5 million per school, which does not sound like much to me.
Not a lot.
Does not seem like that would go well for the Pac-12 as a whole.
Right.
I can't confirm that. Those are just speculative things that are posted out in message boards and across Twitter. But what is your read on this? I don't know much about San Diego State. I'm an East Coast guy, Dan.
Yeah.
You're a West Coast guy. You know a lot about San Diego State, much more than I. Much more so than I. You're from there.
Well, first of all, I'm from the San Fernando Valley. I grew up 3 hours from there. So it's just like...
You're from 3 hours from there. I'm from 3 hours from Penn State.
What do you know about Woodstock, New York, Ty? Let's deep dive the demographics.
What do you know about San Diego State? What do you make of all this?
San Diego State is a very large party school. And it seems like a great time in a great place. And their football team has had a good amount of success, playing a ton of defense and not a lot of offense, and has had guys like Ronnie Hillman and Donnell Pumphrey and Rashad Penny. Are those the big three?
Marshall Faulk?
Okay, yeah, not of the modern era, but Marshall Faulk, yes.
I mean, probably the greatest Aztec of all time.
Yeah, maybe the greatest all-purpose NFL running back of all time. I don't know. Anyway, San Diego State has had a good amount of football success on a non-major conference level and is located in a desirable place for people in Southern California or people anywhere to go to play college football if the Pac-10, 11, 12, whatever it's going to end up being, because I guess SMU is sort of playing footsie as well. Maybe a couple toes only.
Quote unquote dark horse.
Dark horse, sure.
Dark horse.
So whatever the Pac-10, 11, 12 reputation as a major conference is moving forward after whatever happens with this TV deal, sure. San Diego State is quality. The Pac, whatever, would be adding a quality program, presumably. I don't know if they are quality moving forward with Brady Hoke, because they have not, for a good amount of time, figured out offense, but they're quality. They win games, they go to bowls, whatever. The whole situation is odd because everybody just sort of agrees it's a foregone conclusion that at some point San Diego State is going to join, but they've got the money thing with July 1st, and so the presumption is that there will be some sort of TV announcement, and then somebody's going to leave, and San Diego State's going to jump in, and so that's why San Diego State is being careful with its wording, But yes, it does. Like, if you opened your studio door right now and asked Kate if she would be open to the possibility of you taking on a girlfriend, but you're not saying you will, but not for her to answer right away, would you be open? Is that okay? Is that something that we could actually dialogue instead of just being told no right away? I assume the response from her will be less than positive. So it just has the feel that San Diego State's going to be in a new conference soon, and they want an extension because they're not sure when the TV money's going to come in for the desired conference. And I don't know why the Mountain West would entertain this at all.
Yeah, I mean, I just found the memo.
Yeah.
Funny. Like, there is a literal gas lamp district
Of course.
in San Diego.
Very similar to a gaslight district, yeah.
And this is a gaslighting series of quotes here. The intention of the June 13th letter, per source, wasn't that San Diego State is exiting.
Right.
It says in the memo it intends to resign.
Yeah.
That is the intention.
Yeah.
Per the memo itself.
Yeah. You're parsing
But
words
no.
here, Ty.
Cool.
Yeah.
We're just asking questions.
Yeah.
We're just asking questions here.
What if she were a redhead and you are not? It's a totally different situation. Don't take that
totally different
as me saying that you're not enough, but also you may not be enough. Yeah. It has real average lawyer vibes to it. So,
yeah.
All right. So San Diego State's likely intending to be on the move, but not stating its intention plainly.
Kirkland brand football.
Yeah.
Kirkland
San Diego, look, I don't think San Diego State does a lot for me in terms of electricity for my favorite region of football, but I guess you got to do what you got to do.
You know what? Here's the deal.
Yeah.
I am sure that George Kleevkoff, our friend, is not our friend, but we've had fun with his name.
Yeah.
I'm sure he is trying his level best to make this thing work.
Sure.
He was dealt a very poor hand from Larry Scott.
Of course.
Larry Scott is ultimately to blame for this. And so who knows where this money deal is going to wind up when all is said and done, whether it's Apple or ESPN or some other media partner. If it falls short, don't blame him. Because when he came in, he was basically ambushed from all sides. And I don't know if San Diego State's going to go to a Power 5 conference that even exists. This may not happen in due time, because if the numbers fall way short and Colorado leaves and Arizona leaves and Oregon and Washington, they get spooked and they decide to leave, I believe those options will be available to those teams if they want to go. Who knows what this thing looks like in 2024? It could all happen very, very quickly. And I don't want to be alarmist about that. I'm not rooting for this because I think West Coast football is exciting, and I can't quite comprehend a world in which there is not a Pac-12 or a Pac-10 or a Pac-8 or Pac whatever.
Yeah.
That to me feels really weird.
Of course.
But I think it could happen quick. And so I just want people to be aware of that. It's a possibility and not one that I'm excited about, but it's out there.
This is what the people want, apparently. All these people.
It's not what the people want.
This is what.
It's not what the people. It's what the networks want.
Yeah.
It's what the schools want so that they can keep pace with the money.
Right.
But it's not what we want.
No. USC needs that Outback Bowl money, Ty. You need that Big Ten Bowl Alliance money.
Well, look, let's just keep talking. Let's just keep talking in a similar vein here. Jack Swarbrick stepping down as athletic director at Notre Dame. We alluded to this a little bit on the Brew and A that we did. On a Brew and A that we did, a couple weeks back now, I guess 2 weeks ago. Pete Bevacqua, the current chair of the NBC Sports Group, is going to be taking over. Jack Swarbrick stepping aside. Definite vibes from the announcement that it is obviously his decision to do so, but also he's got other projects in mind. So it was not like a hostile split of any sorts. Jack Swarbrick has done a great job at Notre Dame, I think, leading the athletic program through a period of relative tranquility and peace and prosper.
Sure.
So Jack Swarbrick has been very active on the more national level as well with respect to how they are building the expanded playoff and many of the other decisions that have gone down over the last 15 years or so. So he's leaving on very much good terms. Whether or not things change at all now that there's an NBC guy taking over remains to be seen. Notre Dame has anchored itself to this idea of independence for a good long time now. And you know that I've said on this show time and again that it is woven into the fabric of who they are. Mm-hmm. They very much are one with independence. Yeah. They take pride in that. What is changing, though, obviously, is the landscape of college football. It's been the dominant topic now through 30 minutes of this conversation. And what I think is an interesting angle to just keep in the back of your mind mm-hmm. is Notre Dame has been really big about playing a national schedule.
Sure.
Right? National schedule. Is the Big Ten not now a national conference starting in 2024?
Well, they have an agreement, a contracted thing with the ACC.
I know they've got that. I know. I get that.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that playing a national schedule is now possible in a conference, whereas it wasn't before. And I could see with changing landscapes, with changing money, with potentially things going boom here, depending on what happens with the Pac-12. I could see that conversation. I could see that whole mindset changing very quickly. Ultimately, it's not up to Pete Bavacqua if they decide to leave.
Yeah.
He could obviously have influence in that discussion. That's a topic that presidents debate mm-hmm. and that boards of trustees debate.
Mm-hmm.
But just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. I know he said all the right stuff with respect to independence, but the landscape is changing quickly. And, I think even Swarbrick knew that. He's said as much, that if they had to, they had to. If conference affiliation was something that made sense in order to stay competitive, it's something that they would consider.
Right.
There will be a moment in the next couple of years where they have to consider that. I think that's inevitable. But time being, just kind of commit this to me.
Can I write the press release? Is that something you'll give me the ability to do when Notre Dame joins a conference? We feel as if the spirit of our independence is still intact with this move to join the blah, blah, blah. Because we vote, by the way, every other Notre Dame sports team is in a conference. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. So the independence, it only applies to football money. Let's be clear.
Right.
We feel as if in this historic move of Notre Dame joining a conference, the spirit of our independence is intact because of the fact, as you mentioned, that you play Rutgers and USC and you have the national footprint. So the spirit of Notre Dame as this incredibly wide-ranging and widespread institution, it remains intact. Ty,
you missed a big one.
Which is?
You missed a big one. You missed the academic tie-in.
Of course, with Stanford joining the Big Ten, and
Northwest, other fine institutions.
Yeah, we felt the time was right. Ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. Yeah. So, by the way, people laughed at me. And by the way, you should always laugh at me. I'm not saying people shouldn't laugh at me. People laughed at me like 5 years ago when the playoff was becoming what it was becoming. And I was like, college football is a TV show. That's all it is. And that's okay. I love it. But college football is a TV show. We're doing these things for TV and TV only because TV is where the money is. And now, and Ty, you can have a counter, you can whatever. It's the Pac-12, Big 12, Big 10, and Notre Dame all hired TV executives to run things.
That is the way it would line up.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think Syracuse hired one as well to run their athletic department, John Wildhack. So I'm just counting, Ty. I'm just counting up here right now that we're a TV thing, and so we hire TV people to run things now. This isn't competitive athletics. It's a TV show. So just tallying up, Ty. Just tallying up. That's all.
Speaking of money, USF announced that it is building a $340 million stadium.
Great.
That could be ready as soon as 2026. It's going to seat about 35,000 people. I'm pushing now. I want to get out early and call it the bullpen.
Yeah.
I think it'd be perfect. But interesting commentary around this move.
Yeah.
They just voted to approve it. Matt Baker, who writes for Tampa Bay Times, Tampa Bay Tribune. I always screw up paper names. I apologize in advance, but sort of highlighted the dilemma if you are a school like USF. USF has kind of been left out of these first and second waves of conference realignment, but fashions itself as a big-time football program. They've played some big-time games in their history. And in order for this to go down, they have to go $200 million into debt.
Yeah.
Is it worth it? The other $140 million comes from privately raised capital, boosters, donations, things like that. But $200 million in debt is no picnic, right? That's a sizable amount of money.
Right.
And the chairman of the board basically said it was a risk that we had to take. The risk of not doing this, the risk of falling behind in major college football is greater than the $200 million in debt that we're going to incur and presumably have a plan to pay off. But the renderings look cool. All stadium renderings look cool.
Mm-hmm.
They always do. But that aside, business stuff aside, it is exciting for USF fans. By 2026, that'll be here before you know it. And to have a new stadium is obviously something that you can use as a recruiting tool. Who knows where USF will find itself when all the shuffling is done. And yeah, there you go.
I mean, I don't think they're doing this to stay in the American in 2037 or whenever it is, if the grant of rights in the ACC falls apart. They're trying to, position themselves as the most major program possible so that when the realignment cycle continues to spin, potentially in USF's direction, at some point, they are putting their best foot forward and say, look how much we invested in a new stadium and that we are big time. And I guess it could work. I don't know. They've only existed since 1998, 7, somewhere in there.
Yeah. It's a newer program.
It's a newer program. Jim Levitt forever. And then, Willie Taggart and Skip Holtz and God, who was it recently? Jeff Scott, and Charlie Strong. And, it's been a largely mediocre program, and that's okay. It takes a long time, but they've had some ups and certainly some downs. And I don't know. I wish the best for them, but it does sound like just like we got to put everything we can into this because we have to broadcast the USF brand as professionally as possible in the hopes that some major, the mosquito of some major conference will be attracted to our light and come this way. Okay, good luck.
Put some respect on Matt Grothy's name, though, Dan. How dare you?
Yeah, listen, Oregon played USF in the Sun Bowl, and if you're a program that can be demolished by Justin Roper, all due respect to Justin Roper, they were demolished by Jonathan Stewart, who was very good, then I don't know. There's some work to do, but that was 2007. I don't know. It's a long time ago.
Any other news that you want to talk about, Dan?
I don't think so, Ty. What else is anything? I mean, look, it's mid to late June. We'll have media days in the next month or so. We'll have camp opening up soon. I'm going to be a little bit disgusting, Ty. When I'm sitting on the John, I'm reading some magazines, getting a little bit excited for the season, a lot excited for the season. So, no, everybody's just kind of waiting for the Pac-10, 11, 12 TV shoe to drop, and I guess we'll go from there. It is kind of funny that, if you told mid-20-teens Ty or Dan, they're like, one conference might be coveting Colorado, UConn, and Kansas football joining forces. That'd be a weird conversation to have. And Kansas being the actual leader in the Big 12 in terms of the team and program that makes the most money, athletics department that makes the most money. That'd be a different conversation to have in 2015 or something. So, the Mighty Three might come together soon. Colorado, we'll see. I guess that seems to be the biggest threat to leave the conference, but otherwise, no, man. I'm just excited for all of this.
I need to get the Leroy Jenkins sound on my soundboard before that possible move, because that to me would be among the funniest outcomes.
Yeah.
And it's not unforeseen at this point because we've been hearing about Colorado rumors
right
since all this started, and well over a year we've been hearing about, well, Colorado might decide to go back to the Big 12. But Colorado, a program that we argued at the time maybe didn't fit with the Pac-10, Pac-12.
Right.
And has been, you want to talk about largely mediocre, Colorado's been there.
Mm-hmm.
I think we both like Colorado a lot. We think Boulder's a great place for football.
Sure.
There's obviously a ton of great tradition at Colorado. But in their time with the Pac-12, they've been mostly mediocre.
No. They've been the worst team.
They've been the worst team. Okay, I'm trying to be kind.
The worst team.
I'm trying to be kind, man. I'm trying to be kind. We have Colorado people who listen.
That's fine. I'm not saying it's the worst school. I'm not saying it's the worst program. I'm not saying it's the worst people that are involved. Objectively, they've been the worst team.
objectively the worst team in the conference since they joined, for them to go cleats up and just Leroy Jenkins their way over to the Big 12 and to just start another wave of conference realignment would be sort of like the chef's kiss, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's USC and UCLA and Texas and Oklahoma that have been the ones that have started this wave of realignment last year. It's what was the old, like, I don't know who I made it. I'd make it about different quarterbacks. We're like, he's got 5 cars. Yeah. And they're collectively worth $8,300. Big 12 has, okay. So, all right, we'll see what happens. It's all a bummer. And it's a bummer for the Big 12 too, honestly. It's a bummer that, like, to lose those kind of flagship schools.
But is it though? I kind of feel like, and maybe this is spin.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm sort of naive to this.
Yeah.
But if in fact the Big 12 is trying to steer into basketball,
okay,
maybe that's them. Maybe that's them shifting the narrative because they can't shift it as much to football as they would like.
Yeah.
But if they are trying to make it about basketball, if they can attract Arizona, if they can attract UConn, that's a very appealing basketball conference.
Yeah. Remember how appealing the Big East was as a basketball conference? It was
great.
All the same teams still in there and killing it, right? Syracuse, UConn, Pitt, Boston College, like all those guys, they're all together still, right? Just killing it in the major basketball conference, right?
They're on a WhatsApp thread.
Sure. Yeah. Cool. It's a strategy, I suppose. We could pivot to like D2 football talk and see how that goes for our numbers, but I don't think that's happening anytime soon.
All right. Well, look, write in solidverbal@gmail.com. Let us know what's on your mind. Let us know what we missed. We'd, of course, be eager to get your opinions on this. If you're listening out on Spotify, I'll post a question. That's a thing we can do now to get your input, and we can publish it alongside the episode, which is fun. If you are a Spotify listener, make sure you rate the episode as well. Rate the show with 5 stars. Presumably that does help.
Well, I think we might be losing a couple of Big 12 fans. They might be a 2-star kind of day for them after this episode.
If you're a Big 12 fan and you're feeling angered by this, don't leave a star review today, but maybe wait until next episode.
Text Ty 610. What continue?
No. Settle.
Okay.
Leave us a star rating or a review out on Apple as well. That stuff really does help, guys. We appreciate it. We do appreciate it. Verballers.com is where you can go if you want to become a Patreon subscriber and support what Dan and I do. We got some stuff we're going to announce here in the next month and a half.
That'd be cool.
Get things a little spicy in time for the season. Verballers.com is where you can go for that. Quickslants.solidverbal.com is our newsletter. And of course, go on out to our YouTube and social channels. Subscribe there.
I would love for that to happen, Ty.
For that guy over there, my good friend, Dan Rubenstein. For myself, Ty Hildenbrandt. Buckle up for the next episode. It'll be fun.
Oh.
Stay solid.
Peace.